Questions for Coach?
Coach, I know last summer was a lot different in terms of players not being on campus for a while and what you could actually do with them. Can you kind of explain what's different this summer and what have you been doing here with the guys the past few weeks as you get ready for the season?
Well, it's been great to have the guys, here during the summer. As you know, last year we didn't have them here for the spring or summer. And I think the first time we were able to get with our guys in any capacity was in September. So to have guys here and having an official summer under their belt where we can kind of work with them, they can get with the strength and conditioning coach, all the things that go along with kind of building some really good habits in the off season. I'm just happy to see that our guys are able to do that this year.
Johnny, you obviously Isaiah, CJ, Darius all coming back. When did you find out they were all going to come back, and kind of what was your reaction of having them deciding to?
Well, I think they all decided at different points in time, as they were going through the process. Some earlier and some a little bit later. But I think they all made the right decision, for them. They had a chance to explore it, see the things they need to do to be successful, beyond us. And for us, I think that'll be good because we can kind of work with them on some of the things they have to improve, which is something that I think they'll be excited about. So I think they made the right decision, and excited to have them back and looking forward to working with them.
Did you have to change? Did you have to change any sort of maybe your mentality? Did you have to kind of go ahead with this idea they may not be there, but did you have to change what your plan was for the summer and kind of retooling the team a little bit?
No, absolutely. Our mindset, when guys are putting their names in the draft, we have to be prepared for them to stay in the draft. We have to. So you have to always be cognizant of the fact that those players may be gone, and you have to be prepared for it. I thought we were, fairly prepared for, the guys' departures. But like I said, I think they made the right decisions, and that's all I look at as young people, making good, sound decisions. And I think we try to teach that here. We try to mentor our young people, and I think the best decision were for those guys this year to return, and I'm glad they did.
As you look back on the past season, just how disruptive was COVID over the course of the season?
And looking back, it was very disruptive for us. I think, every team, experienced it a little bit differently. Because we didn't have a spring or summer with our guys, especially when you brought some freshmen that could impact in, they never got good work in the off season. Then you couple that with, having probably 4 bouts of COVID hit us during the course of the season, which disrupted our practices and play. That's very challenging. Like I said, I think I told someone before, probably the most challenging season I ever had, and it was the most challenging season I ever had as a coach, because there's so many moving parts that you had no control over, and that affected, I think your performances, affected your guys' mindsets, because it can be somewhat depressing to not be able to play, or you go to practice, see 5 guys in practice or less for 5 to 10 days because, you have restrictions, and notably they should be, because it's a very serious, virus, and you want to make sure that you're being safe. But in our sport, that inconsistency of play and inconsistency of practice, nothing good can come from that, really, and I think it made it very challenging.
Johnny, a lot of the discussion, especially after the pandemic, so to speak, was vaccinations and getting coaching staffs and players vaccinated going into next season, because you don't want to have to maybe face the same challenges you had last year. How do you view that, and what do you think your team, what is their response maybe to that about getting vaccinated for COVID?
Well, all we can do is try to educate our young student athletes, and that's what we do. And then they all make their individual choices. We're not pushing or advocating, for our guys, one way or another, other than we want to make sure they're educated on what's out there. And I think giving them good information has, I think, been very helpful to our team. I think the majority of our guys have gotten vaccinated. I won't go into who, and that's their privacy rights, but I think that's because they've been educated on the benefits of it, and that's the choice that they decide to make, they and their families as well. So I couple that looking back on last year when we didn't have the vaccine readily available at that point in time. You went from having no one vaccinated and going through this process, and to now having, I think, the majority of our team vaccinated, which is something I think is good for our guys.
How do you go about things differently, knowing you have some unvaccinated players?
We'll still be smart about our unvaccinated players, understanding the uses of a mask, understanding of social distancing, washing their hands. We should still all be doing that anyway, but more prevalent for the guys who, of course, are not vaccinated. And then we need to make sure we keep an eye on them, especially with the new variant, out there now, that our guys are aware that it's easily transmissible, and so they have to be even more careful right now when they're out and where they are, kind of, functioning under the same, rules and standards that they were functioning under last year. A lot more testing has to be required because of, not having been vaccinated. So these are some of the things that they have to stay in that same type of, system they were in last year.
Is this clearly it's the deepest team you will ever have had just because of the number of scholarships with these super seniors that are able to come back. That's kind of unprecedented. I think it's 14 guys on scholarship. Usually you only have 13. But is it a challenge in keeping players happy in rotations? Because, normally a couple of these guys would have been graduated and gone, and you have guys always want playing time. Is that going to be a challenge of just finding minutes for everybody?
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully, we'll throw ourselves into just competing to try to win. And I think when you do that, you understand that there's some sacrifices that have to be made. If everyone can approach it that way, I think then it will be fine. But as you mentioned, this is an unprecedented time with super seniors, as we call them, returning. You're recruiting based on your projections of how it's going to look for the future, and all of a sudden you have guys that will be gone returning. It does create, somewhat of a different dynamic. But, we're going to have to work through it. I think everyone's lived through this pandemic, so everyone realizes that we're not back to a real sense of normalcy as of yet. We're getting there, but it's just not right now. And as we're working through that, everyone has to be a little more understanding, a little more patient, a little more ready to sacrifice because of just the circumstances that we all are in.
Johnny, we saw a glimpse of what this team could do. Obviously, you beat FSU in Tallahassee and then conference win against Cincinnati, but then obviously the stoppages with the vaccine out there and more education on COVID and hopefully less stoppages. What do you feel like with everyone returning you guys can accomplish this season?
Well, I think we have a lot of potential, and our job is to turn that potential into accomplishments. And I think the way we do that, it starts now by having a great summer, a great preseason, a build up toward where we think we can be. But I think we can be competitive against everyone. I thought that last year, and we were for the most part. And I think we can do that again this year. And prayerfully we don't have any stoppages and things of that nature that kind of can derail you a little bit. But I think this team has a chance to be very good. I think it can compete against anyone that we have on our schedule.
You just hired a tremendously experienced strength coach yesterday, and Charles Stevenson. Can you share what you liked about him and what he's going to bring to your program?
Well, he has a wealth of experience, as you know. He's worked at some amazing places and has accomplished a lot with the players that he's been able to work with. The biggest thing I've enjoyed, getting to know him and developing a relationship with him is just his ability to relate to the players, his ability to get them to respond through building, strong relationships with them. And each one of them's on a different basis. We all are different. And so what may work in motivating one person, you may have to do something else to motivate another. And I really like his ability to kind of find what buttons to push to help young people maximize, who they can be. So he's been terrific.
Johnny, how important is it? Last year, because of the bubble and COVID and everything, you guys really weren't able to build some of that chemistry maybe you normally would have. How important is it this summer and going into fall to get that chemistry back with all these guys now that they're going to all be together for the second year in a row?
No, it's hugely important. Rarely you get all your guys back for many years in a row nowadays with the transfer portal and with just guys graduating or going early into the draft. So to have a group of guys come back, I think is good for us. I think we have a chance to build some chemistry and continuity. We didn't, as you mentioned before, have a chance to really do that last year. I had a lot of moving pieces, a lot of new guys last year trying to define their roles, seeing how they fit in with our team. And this year, I think guys will be a little more comfortable, especially the freshmen, guys like Isaiah, guys like Jamil, that now have a year under their belt. I think that really helps them in kind of knowing who they are. They've been through the league once. They've been through our preseason, know how competitive our preseasons are. So they know what they need to do to prepare to be successful.
You have some guys taking advantage of name, image, and likeness. How do you navigate that so it's not a distraction amongst your players?
Well, it's exciting times for those young people and exciting times for everyone. So they can take advantage of their name, image, and likeness, as you just mentioned. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that, in my position, we can't really aid or any assist in any of those things. So that's really anything that they do, they really end up doing on their own with that. That's not our ability as NCAA coaches to impact that, other than we support them, and their abilities to go out and earn what they can earn, on who they are. And so we definitely support it and rooting for our guys to have as much success as possible off the court.
Your incoming recruiting class, I guess, has been on campus a few weeks. Darius Johnson, P.J. Edwards, Rhodes, and Tom Freeman. What's your early impressions of being able to work with those guys?
I've been very impressed with the young guys. The freshmen have come in. They work very hard. I think our upperclassmen have done a really good job of leading them and kind of showing them, our culture and what we want to accomplish. So I think it's worked very well. But those young players, like I said, I mentioned potential earlier, and we want to turn that potential into accomplishments. And I feel the same way about each one of those guys. They have a great deal of potential, and I think if they can maximize their potential, it just makes us a better team.
Johnny, you were once a college player yourself. Would you have taken advantage of the name, image, and likeness, and would you have found a way to utilize it?
I think I would have found a few ways to take advantage of that for sure. And it's just, like I said, it's a wonderful opportunities for these young people. And like I said, I think each one of them has to run their own race with regards to it, because it's going to mean something different for each individual player. Some guys I'm sure will be more marketable, as you guys know, than other players, and just they should have the right to be able to go out and take advantage of that opportunity, because in life this game goes by fast. This is a young man's sport. So you're old at 32, so just think you finished playing and you had the opportunity, during your collegiate days to maybe earn a certain amount. You can never get that back. Once it's gone, it's gone. So these young people have an opportunity now to go out and pursue those things. It won't interfere with what we do from the standpoint, you're not going to be able to miss practice to go to film a commercial or to go down to some, a dealership or whatever. I'm just using those as examples. You're going to have to, understand that, the priority, of course, and what's allowed you to have all those things for your name, image, and likeness is what we do here. So UCF is, being on a team. So we're going to definitely, support you, but it shouldn't interfere with anything like practices or games or things that we have. Our young men understand those are the priorities, and they need to take care of those, and then on their time they can, pursue those other opportunities.
You always speak of defense being very important in driving your team. Talk a little bit about the struggles throughout the last season on defense and what you're emphasizing as you're going to go forward through the summer.
Yeah, we're just excited to have a summer where we can kind of focus in on our defense again. Last summer that really hurt us. We had a lot of new players, a lot of freshmen coming in, and young people that are going to be, key contributors. For them not to have a foundation laid defensively and trying to lay that foundation as we were moving through a season was very difficult, because defense is about developing certain habits. And you can kind of instill some of those, during your 8 weeks of the summer, where you can kind of lay down a foundation. We weren't able to lay that down. So it's been great to start that process now this summer, laying that foundation for even like our freshmen who are sophomores, like an Isaiah, as I mentioned before, or Jamil, to have them now go through some of the things that they were able to touch somewhat during the season, but we couldn't continue it as much because you're in season. Now to get, a intense dose of kind of what we want, I think will help those guys. And the repetitions that they're taking now will help them, continue to learn the defense and become more comfortable in what we want to do.
I know injuries were an issue last year at point guard. For a while, Darius Perry was really the only true point guard, and sometimes he was out. I know Dre Fuller was kind of executing that role, but how nice will it be to maybe finally have some depth again? Hopefully, Tony is back and healthy. I know you got a recruit as well that can play the point. How much is that a relief to you, knowing that maybe you'll have multiple options to play that position?
Definitely. To have a little more depth gives us an opportunity to hopefully withstand if someone does, get injured and goes down. It happens to someone. In a lot of seasons that happens to every team. And, having a depth, I think, will help us in that area, especially when it's quality depth guys that can come in and can contribute. I think will definitely be something that can help us, as we move forward through the season.
You talked about being competitive across the league, but do you see your team being there with Houston and Memphis atop the league?
That's what we want to be. Our vision is always one of a championship. We have that as a team. A championship vision every time that we step, foot on the court every season. And that doesn't change, which means we want to be the best team in the conference, and we're going to work towards that every single year, and that's what we're doing. Those teams have had a lot of success, of course, especially Houston this past year. Going to the Final Four. I think we always knew our conference was very good, and having a team get there again, I think just reiterates to everyone just how good a conference we have. So we're excited about being in a conference playing against teams like Houston, playing against teams like Memphis. That's just great for us, and our guys are excited about being in those type of games in those situations.
So the NBA Finals is now a little bit more interesting. It's a tied series. I don't know if you've been able to keep track or watching the games. You know, do you have any predictions for how things are going to turn out between the Suns and Bucks?
I do not. I usually stay away from making those predictions. I think it's a great series, which I think we all want it. I think everybody's excited. It's 2-2 now, going back to Phoenix. So how good is that? And that's what you just want to see, some good basketball. I think you've seen some stellar performances by guys. Middleton yesterday, of course. Giannis, almost every single night he steps foot on the floor. Looking at, Booker last night again in a loss, just what a heck of a performance. CP3 and what he's been doing, I think for his career, kind of, having this great opportunity now in the finals. This is a lot of good stories, and it's a lot of good basketball. I've been enjoying it, and like I said, I don't know which way it's going to, turn out, because none of those are really my team, but I'm excited to just see good basketball and competitive basketball.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Coach.
All right, guys.
Enjoyed it.
All right, guys. Thanks. Take care.